Have you ever heard of a battle that completely rewrote the rules of history? A moment so powerful it sent shockwaves across continents and became a symbol of unbreakable spirit. Today, we're diving deep into one such epic event. The Battle of Adwa, a story of how Ethiopia, against all odds, defended its freedom and became a beacon of hope for an entire continent. The late 19th century was a tough time for Africa. European powers were carving up the continent in what was called the Scramble for Africa. From north to south, east to west, ancient kingdoms and societies were falling under colonial rule. It seemed like no one could stop the tide. But in the highlands of East Africa, one nation stood defiant. Ethiopia, a country with a rich history stretching back thousands of years, a unique Christian heritage, and a fierce sense of independence. At the heart of this story is Emperor Menelik II and his brilliant wife, Empress Taitubidal. Menelik was a visionary leader, a modernizer who understood the world was changing. He was also a master strategist. Empress Taito was his equal in every way sharp, decisive, and deeply patriotic. She was a key advisor and a military leader in her own right. Together, they were the power couple that would face down one of Europe's rising powers, Italy. So, how did this all start? It began with a piece of paper, the Treaty of Wuchale, signed in 1889. The treaty was meant to foster friendship and trade between Ethiopia and Italy. But there was a catch, a classic case of lost in translation, or maybe not so lost. The treaty was written in two languages, Amharic, Ethiopia's language, and Italian. The Amharic version said, Ethiopia could use Italy's help for foreign relations. The Italian version, however, said Ethiopia must go through Italy, effectively making it an Italian protectorate. When Menelik discovered this deception, he was furious. He tried diplomacy, but Italy wouldn't budge. They saw this as their golden ticket to establishing a new Roman Empire in Africa. Menelik's response was legendary. He sent a letter to the European powers, declaring, Ethiopia has need of no one. She stretches out her hands unto God. He was drawing a line in the sand. He then publicly tore up the treaty and began preparing for the inevitable conflict. This wasn't just a king's decision. It was a national calling. Menelik issued a mobilization proclamation that echoed through every mountain and valley. It was a call to arms for every able-bodied person, a summons to defend their homes, their faith, and their ancient freedom. Imagine the scene. Messengers on horseback galloping across the rugged landscape, the sound of war drums beating in villages, and people from all walks of life, farmers, artisans, nobles grabbing their weapons and marching. It was a massive, unified movement. People gathered whatever they could, traditional spears and shields, old firearms, and a surprising number of modern rifles that Menelik had cleverly stockpiled over the years, buying them from various European sources, including the Russians and the French. On the other side, the Italians were confident, maybe a little too confident. Their commander, General Oresti Baratiri, saw the Ethiopians as disorganized and poorly equipped. He was under immense pressure from Rome to secure a quick, decisive victory. He pushed his army of around 17,000 men, a mix of Italian soldiers and Eritrean auxiliaries known as askaris, deep into Ethiopian territory, stretching their supply lines thin. The Ethiopian force was a sight to behold. A massive army, estimated at around 100,000 strong, had gathered. It wasn't just a mob. It was an organized force under the command of Menelik II and their top generals, or raises. These were legendary figures like Ras Makanan, Ras Mangusha, and Ras Alula Enguda, the Garibaldi of Abyssinia. Each leader commanded their own contingent, but they were all united under the emperor's banner. Empress Taitu herself commanded her own personal army of several thousand soldiers, a clear sign of her power and influence. The stage was set near a town called Adwa, a place of strategic importance surrounded by hills and treacherous terrain. The Ethiopians knew this land like the back of their hands. The Italians did not. As the armies faced each other in late February 1896, a battle of wits began. The Ethiopians had a clever strategy. Lure the Italians in, cut off their supplies, and use the terrain to their advantage. 4 weeks, they waited. their massive army cleverly concealed in the hills. The Italians were getting desperate. Their food and water were running out, and morale was plummeting. General Baratieri knew he had to act fast. He was getting telegrams from Rome mocking his inaction. On the evening of February 29th, a leap year, Baratieri made a fatal decision. Against the advice of his own generals, he ordered a surprise night march to attack the Ethiopian camp. He split his army into 3 columns, planning to converge on the Ethiopian positions at dawn. But this complex plan was a recipe for disaster in the dark. Unfamiliar mountains of Adwa. The columns got lost. They took wrong turns. Their maps were inaccurate, and communication broke down. Instead of a coordinated surprise attack, the Italian brigades stumbled into Ethiopian positions, isolated and confused. At dawn, on March 1st, 1896, the battle began. It wasn't the battle the Italians had planned. Ethiopian scouts had detected the Italian advance. As the sun rose, the hills around Adwa erupted. The full might of the Ethiopian army, which the Italians had severely underestimated, crashed down on the separated Italian columns. It was chaos for the Italians. They were ambushed from all sides. The Ethiopian soldiers, fueled by patriotism and a desire to protect their homeland, fought with incredible ferocity. The sound of gunfire, war cries, and the thunder of cavalry charges filled the air. Emperor Menelik was in the thick of it, directing his troops from a command post, a prayer book in one hand and a weapon nearby. Empress II was also near the front lines, directing her artillery and shouting encouragement to the soldiers. Courage. Strike them down. Her presence was a huge morale booster. The Italian brigades were overwhelmed one by one. They were outmaneuvered and outnumbered in each engagement. The terrain that was supposed to be a battlefield became a trap. The Ethiopians used their knowledge of the hills and valleys to encircle and decimate the Italian forces. By midday, the battle was over. It was a complete and total rout for the Italians. Their army was shattered. The victory at Adwa was stunningly decisive. It was the first time a modern European army had been so thoroughly defeated by an African force in open battle. The news spread like wildfire. In Italy, the government collapsed. Riots broke out in the streets. For Italy, it was a national humiliation that would haunt them for decades. But for Ethiopia, and for people of African descent around the world, it was a moment of immense pride and inspiration. Adwa proved that African people could successfully resist European imperialism. It showed that unity, clever strategy, and a powerful will to be free could triumph over modern military technology and colonial arrogance. Ethiopia secured its sovereignty, becoming the only African nation, alongside Liberia, to remain independent during the scramble for Africa. Adwa became a powerful symbol for anti-colonial movements across the continent and for civil rights activists in the Americas. It was a testament to the idea that freedom is not given, it is defended and won. So, the next time you think about epic battles that changed the course of history, remember Adwa. It's more than just a military victory. It's a story of a nation that stood together, a king and queen who led with wisdom and courage, and a people who refused to be colonized. It's Africa's unbreakable victory. Thanks for watching. If you found this story as incredible as I do, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell, so you don't miss our next dive into history's most fascinating moments. Let me know in the comments what other historical events you'd like to see covered. See you next time.